Yo, yo. Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I am your host, the Soap Man. Yo, I got a lot to cover, so we just gonna skip the lengthy intro and jump right off into it, dawg. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, Soap Man proudly presents the Book of Judges Part 3 continued. Gideon, the legend. He's legendary, folks. Now, in my last episode, we talked about how the Midianites had basically invaded the land of Canaan, similar to how the Israelites had invaded hundreds of years prior. So what are the Israelites to do? God raises up the judge Gideon. Now, Gideon is a simple man, and we talked about in the last episode how Gideon is really viewed as, as timid and, not the most faithful, not the most trusting. But we also talked about, and we keep re-emphasizing how the book of Judges takes place in a time period where the Israelites have no king. They are leaderless, and that's I keep stressing and emphasizing this because it's important to understand the state of affairs. Long gone are the days of Moses and the Joshuas. That has faded. These people are reckless, rambunctious. They breaking all the rules. They not keeping with the covenant. And it shows, and they going through all kind of trouble and turmoil, getting tossed from one nation to the other, getting oppressed and abused by one nation or the other. And it's just, really a really bad period for them. But there's every now and then there's these sparkles or glimpses of hope, if you will. These little shining lights, these little Roman candles that come up and blow up, called judges. And so Gideon is the new judge now, and he's going up against the Midianites. God has raised him up. And that's what we picking up with today's episode. So Gideon is pitched his army. He's called forth, the different tribes of Judah the different tribes of Israel have responded. They meet up. God tells him it's too many men. He starts out with, I think, about 30,000 men. God tells him, look, it's too many men. Send everybody who don't really want to beat us, send them home. Gideon does that. He's left with 10,000 men. So God tells him that's still too many men. So he performs this little act at the river, this little event at the river, to where only the men who drink hand to mouth are chosen as the elite force that Gideon is going to use. So he handpicks these 300 individuals, and he uses them. He gives them torches that they put in empty pots. And he gives them horns, and they surround the Midianites. The Bible says the Midianites are on their north side. So whatever side the north side is, they're to one side of them. And so Gideon splits his 300 soldiers, his 300 hand-picked elite soldiers for this mission, and he breaks them up into 3 camps, 100 soldiers deep. And so he surrounds the Midianites on 3 sides and ambushes them, startles them. And the Bible says that the Midianites turn on each other and they panic and they flee. And here I got a battle map for you. And I don't know how well you can see this on your screen, but it's marked, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In order to, how the battle plays out. So if you can see, if you can see my pointer here in the middle of the screen, you start here where the swords cross. Well, you start here at 1. Okay, where the swords cross is where the battle actually takes place. So you start here at 1. It says Midianite camel raiders established themselves in Israel and began pillaging. So the Midianites come in from this direction and they start spreading out, pillaging and plundering, taking what don't belong, taking and ravaging as they may. Okay, so they occupying the land. They came from this direction where the long blue arrow is pointing. So Gideon, we come down here to number 2. Gideon emerges as a judge and calls for men to fight the raiders while dealing with internal religious problems. About 30,000 tribesmen respond to Gideon's call, meeting at Ophrah. So Gideon gives out the call, 30,000 troops respond, and they meet here at Ophrah. 3 is down here. It says Gideon convenes with the Israelite council at the spring of Harod. He chooses 10,000 for his field army and 300 for an elite force to confront the Midianites. So here at the spring of Harod, we have Gideon telling everybody who's afraid to be there to go home. And he's left with 10,000 men. And out of those 10,000, he chooses 300 elite men to go with him on an ambush mission. So we go over here to 4. Gideon leads his small elite force behind the enemy camp and makes a noisy demonstration attack, accompanied by trumpets and torches. Hold on, folks. We got to do a sound check. Bootleg Productions in the house. I promise it's not gonna be bad. I promise it's not gonna be bad. Okay, I always do a pre-show sound check. Okay, I always do a pre-show sound check. This was expected. Do not be alarmed. This is the only time that this is gonna happen. And of course, that's probably a lie. But anywho, where was we? So back to the map. So Gideon and his small band of 300 at night creep up and surround the Midianite force on 3 sides, 100 men deep, 3 sets of 100 men deep. Flank the Midianites on all sides. 5. Thinking they are under heavy assault, the sleepy Midianites panic and begin fighting one another in the chaos. Their army disintegrates and they begin to flee. Remember in the last episode we talked about how Gideon and his 300 smashed their pots, grabbed their torches, and blew their horns right at shift change, right at the shift change of the night watch. So this is accurate. The Midianites were sleepy. They were caught off guard. They did panic. The Bible says they turn on each other and flee. Number 6 down here says the Midianites are chased headlong into the rest of Gideon's army. Thousands of battle-ready Israelites warriors fall on the scattered and panicked Midianites and massacre them. This is true. When Gideon handpicks his 300 soldiers for this elite early morning attack, he doesn't get rid of his other 10,000. I'm not going through, I'm not digging deep into Gideon's battle strategy, in any of these videos. I don't go into a lot of detail on a lot of things because I don't think people halfway interested in any of this to begin with. I just skim the top and try to give you a general idea of what happened. But when Gideon handpicks his 300 out of the 10,000, he doesn't get rid of the remaining 10,000. They're lying here in wait on the route that the Midianites are expected to flee in. They're lying in wait, waiting for them. This is probably, maybe, I don't know, it's kind of a blurry map, but if you can see the route that the Midianites take, the same way, it's like the projects, the same way they came in is the same way they go out, because they're believed that they're under heavy attack by Gideon and his 300. So as they flee, Gideon's men, the spring of Harod, that's where they originally that's where Gideon and his men originally set up shop and headquarters. It's on the route, it's on the escape route of the Midianites. And so here's my final map here. This is where the battle takes place, if you want to call it a battle. The map here even says Gideon's 300 encircle the Midianites. Now I put this on repeat. I just want to see if it repeat. Okay, so I know it ain't gonna repeat. All right, I know. I'm sorry. I lied and said that was only gonna happen one time. I lie from time to time, but I'm an honest liar because I always admit my lie. So the battle takes place here where this red circle is at the top of the map, if you can't see my pointer. And Gideon, he spooks the Midianites. They go back out the same way they came in. Follow my arrow down here. Gideonites' men, they're stationed at Herod's Spring or Herod's Well right here. They're on the route. If you can see my pointer here, this little black dot, it says Herod's Well. They're on the route. They're on the escape route of the Midianites. So when Gideon and his 300 spooked the Midianites and they turned to flee, Gideon's army, the rest of the 10,000 what does that leave? 9,700. His other 9,700 troops harass, attack, and kill the men in the hindmost part of the fleeing army. They're gonna attack these Midianites and harass them as they're fleeing because they're easy pickings. It's smart, it's brilliant. Gideon's whole battle plan is genius. The Midianites flee and they hug the Jordan River on their escape route. You see where the arrows are pointing? It's hugging the Jordan River. Gideon has already written a letter to the Ephraimites, who are also on the Midianites' escape route. Gideon's already written a letter to them telling them, get to the crossing point before they get there. And they do. And they massacre, because what you have to understand is the Midianite horde is enormous, over 100,000 individuals, the Bible claims. So the Ephraimites come out, take the Jordan crossing before the Midianites get there, and it is like sheep to the slaughter. The Ephraimites, according to Soapman, rank high upon the warrior list of the 12 tribes. Remember a couple episodes ago, I gave you a list or a ranking of my opinion of where the 12 tribes rank as far as being, toughest to least toughest. So the Ephraimites ranked high on the list, so they did their job when it came to wiping out those Midianites. Stand on top of it, folks. Bootleg production, we don't want no problems. It's a hero's beat, though. I needed this beat because we talking about a hero, and Gideon is a hero. A hero indeed. Came up with this brilliant plan, got everybody involved, and look, he made it easy. This is what you have to understand. Gideon made it easy for the Israelites. He made it easy for them. They had no excuse as to why they could not participate in this brilliant strategy. Even after he already got the Midianites on the run, it was not a big ask to send a letter to the Ephraimites to wipe out these sheep to the slaughter, to knock this underhand lob that he had just thrown them, to knock it out of the park, was not a very big ask. I mean, provided their current situation as a whole. So Gideon is brilliant. He has a brilliant plan. He executes it brilliantly. He gets all the props in the world. The man is truly a legend and goes down. He's going to go down as a legend for this act. I mean, he's going to go down as a legend in his lifetime for what he pulls off in his battle against the Midianites. Judges chapter 8, verses 1 through 7 read, "And the men of Ephraim said unto him, Why hast thou served us thus, that thou calledst us not, when thou wentest to fight the Midianites?" I'm sorry, they talk funny. Let me read that again. "And the men of Ephraim said unto him, Why hast thou served us thus?" Meaning, why have you done this to us? That thou callest us not, when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites. What they're saying is the Ephraimites, afterwards, after the battle, after they defeat the Midianites, the Ephraimites come to Gideon and say, "Why have you done this to us? Why did you not call us and tell us you were going to go fight the Midianites so we could have come and helped?" And they did chide with him sharply, the Bible says. "And when he said unto them, What have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeeb. And what was I able to do in comparison of you?" Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. And you see, I got both of these. I got the statement of the Ephraimites and Gideon's response highlighted in big, bold red print, because it just go to show you. And this is important. Hold on, don't let this sound check like take away from what I gotta say, because it is extremely important. So I got those two conversation pieces highlighted to highlight a bigger point. And the bigger point is, ain't this just like people? Ain't this just like people to make it about them? Ain't it just like, I know it is with my people. It's just like ninjas to take a moment to make a mountain out of a molehill, to take a moment that should be one that we can all partake in and all rejoice in, and make it about them, to make every moment about how tough they are and how about it they are and how they ain't having it and how you better not try that with them. And that's why I have this highlighted, because this is classic. This is classic. It's cliche. It's expected. It should be expected at this point. The Ephraimites take this time, take this event as an opportunity to chide with Gideon sharply about why he didn't call them beforehand. And so Gideon says to them, he has to give them their props. He has to stroke their ego, make them feel good. Of course, he should thank them for their help, but he has to go over and beyond, jump through hoops, bend over backwards. I mean, has anybody other than me ever seen this? It seemed like I live this almost on a day-to-day basis, where you just gotta pat somebody on the behind for helping and stroke their ego and do all kind of extra stuff. Anyway, don't let me go off on a rant, on a tangent and a rant. Let me keep going. It said, Gideon says, "Ain't the grapes where you live better than where I live? God has delivered us a great victory. We executed 2 of the princes of the Midianites. Can't we just all be, happy about that?" Clearly, it was God that who deserves the props for this win and not me. Okay, that's what Gideon is saying to them. Nobody is about to, stroke their own ego and start bragging. To God be the glory. He get the victory. That's why he's saying, and what have I done was able to do in comparison to you? This is God's doing. And so let's all take part in the rejoicing. And it says, then their anger was abated towards him when he had said that. Very well spoken by whoever wrote this. And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with him, faint, yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Succoth, give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. And the princes of Succoth said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thine army? And Gideon said, therefore, when the Lord hath delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into mine hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. So what happens is Gideon is still pursuing this Midianite army. Let's go back to where Gideon has the Midianites on the run. If we go back to, because I skipped around to the end of the fight, we already know Gideon and his army is going to end up winning. But let's play this part by part. So the circle up here, Gideon and his 300 troops spook the Midianites. They hightail it out of town. Gideon's men at Herod's Well or Herod's Spring start attacking the Midianites, following them and harassing them, picking them off as they come down, hugging the river. The Ephraimites are lying in wait. They take the crossing of the Jordan River. They hit the Midianites hard here at the river. It's a huge army. Some of them start crossing early before they get down to where, the Ephraimites are attacking them. But they're being harassed by multiple tribes, picked off. They start crossing the river. Some of them cross here, some of them cross here, some of them cross earlier. They end up still getting picked off, still getting harassed, and they're going to end up at Karkor, because the Bible is going to say that Gideon and his army picked them off the whole way, all the way unto Karkor. And so, as this is taking place, as Gideon and his army are harassing and picking off the Midianites, he comes to Succoth, and he tells the men of Succoth, give my men bread and water. We're tired. We've been pursuing the Midianites and harassing them a long way. And the men of Succoth say, we're not giving you jack. You don't have the kings in your hand yet. You may have killed their sons or some of their princes or some of their captains, but you ain't in charge yet, buddy. So Gideon says, okay, I tell you what, when I am in charge, when I defeat these kings, I'm going to come back and give you a whooping. That's what he tells them. And it says, and Gideon said, therefore, when the Lord hath delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into mine hand, then will I tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with the briars. He told them he was going to give them a whooping. Can you imagine a grown man speaking to you like this? Bootleg Productions in the house, y'all. I am so sorry, man. This is the last time. I promise. This is the last time. And I can truly say that. I'm not lying this time. This is the last time. Anyway. With AC Pro, anyone can recharge their car's AC. Like a pro. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm tripping because, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not redoing this. Y'all either gonna take it or leave it. Okay, but I may have lost my Wow, I can't believe this is really happening. Now, I put this map up because I want to talk about the different tribes real quick. And you can see most of them. I think the only one you can't see is Simeon. It's down here within the tribe of Judah. But you see all the different tribes here. I want to talk about these Ephraimites once more. They are of the tribe of, well, the Ephraimites are of the tribe of Ephraim. They are the children of Joseph. Joseph had two children, Ephraim and Manasseh. And the Ephraimites and the Manassites are closely related. They're the children of Joseph. They're also high ranking on my list of most tough to least toughest of the 12 tribes. Gideon, I believe, is of the tribe of Manasseh, I believe he says. So Gideon, he's talking tough. He's talking tough to these kings of these, or these governors of these different cities. But when it came to the Ephraimites, he kind of eased up and stroked their ego. So, it's just stuff that I notice, you know what I'm saying, on my tough bar, from toughest to more tough. And so the Ephraimites, to me, come off as tough, and they throw their weight around. And so that's why I rank them third out of the, who's the toughest out of the 12 tribes. I rank the Ephraimites as third on the list of, toughest to least toughest, with Judah at first, Benjamin at second, and Ephraim coming in third. And the only reason I'm saying this now is because I'm going to touch on this even more. You know what I mean? Remember a couple episodes we talked about Ehud. Ehud was from the tribe of Benjamin. And I put the tribe of Benjamin in second place. The tribe of Benjamin is real small. It's the smallest tribe out of the 12 tribes. But the tribe of Benjamin is a force to be reckoned with, and Ehud is a perfect example of this. They not conventional fighters. They not coming, conventional fighting is not what they bring to the table. You know what I mean? You may think you come into a fight and, you squaring up, and, that's the way, you ready to fight, because that's the way you think the fight is gonna go. But the other person may not necessarily be thinking that way. We talked about a ninja in that episode with Ehud, and how Ehud was like, one of the first assassins in history. Ehud, back at that time, brought something new to the table. People were not fighting like that back then. Not very many people could have pulled off what Ehud pulled off. That's what made him so great. But the tribe of Benjamin, they were known for producing troops like that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about, this one of the greatest characters in the Bible, in my opinion, King David. So it's just, I like to highlight the differences between these tribes. And you'll see me doing that going forward, highlighting the differences between these tribes and, what they bring to the table. Okay, let me do one quick sound check again, folks. So sorry. This has to be done. I'm almost, had to make sure I looped it. In fact. So moving on, Judges chapter 8 verses 8 through 12 read, "And he went up thence to Penuel, and spake unto them," still chasing the Midianites now, "and he went up thence from Penuel, and spake unto them likewise," meaning like he spoke to the people in the prior city in Succoth. "And the men in Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he spake also unto the men of Penuel, saying, When I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and their host was with them, about 15,000 men. Starting off, folks, remind you, starting off from over 100,000. Now their army has dwindled down to about 15,000. All that were left of the host of the children of the east. For there fell 120,000 men that drew sword. And Gideon went up by the way of them that dwelt in the tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and smote the host, for the host was secure. And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them, and took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host. Judges 8, chapter 13 through 21 read, And Gideon the son of Joash returned from the battle before the sun was up, and caught a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him. And he described unto him the princes of Succoth, and the elders thereof, even 70 men, meaning 77 men. And he came unto the men of Succoth, and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary? And he took the elders of the city, and thorns of the wilderness, and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth. And he beat down the tower of Penuel, and slew the men of the city. Then said he unto Zebah and Zalmunna, What matter of men were they, whom ye slew at Tabor? And they answered, As thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king. And he said, They were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord liveth, if ye had saved them alive, I would not slay you. And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, Up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth. And Zebah and Zalmunna said, Rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. So let me explain this. Let me explain what happens. Gideon comes to a city called Succoth, and he begs the leaders or the elders of that city to give his men bread and water. They refuse him. He says, When I come back, and they give specific reasons why they refuse him. They say, You don't have the prize yet. You don't have the kings of Midian in your hands yet. We don't have to listen to what you say. You may not even survive this. So Gideon says, I tell you what, when I have the kings in my hand, I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you a whooping. So he comes to another city called Penuel. And he does the same as he did in Succoth. He asked them for bread and water for his troops. They give him about the same answer as the men from Succoth. So he says, when I come back, I'm gonna tear down your tower. And that's exactly what he does. He eventually captures Zalmunna and what is the guy's name? Zebah. He eventually catches Zebah and Zalmunna at a city called Karkor. And he drags them back here, Karkor down here, the black dot with the red circle. And he drags them back to Succoth and Penuel just to prove a point. And the Bible says he asks a man of Succoth about the elders of the city, and he tells Gideon, and Gideon rounds these men up and publicly whoops these grown men. Man, Gideon came a long way since the beginning of his story in the Bible. He then went from a son to a daddy. Now he's a daddy's daddy. Whooping grown men in public for their insolence. And I'm going to tell you, we need to get back to these days, because a lot of these grown old men need whoopings. Real talk. I ain't just trying to, that's no joke. And that's not taking a jab at my own pops. I'm just saying, a lot of these grown folks. They ain't no better than the kids a lot of times. They just as ignorant as the kids. They grown kids. Anyways, I don't want to go off on a tangent and on a rant. And also I must stall while I do a bootleg sound check in the house. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. I promise you that is the last time that I'm gonna have to do that. Anyways, moving on, Judges chapter 8 verses 21 through 28 read, "And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna, and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks. Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, Rule thou over us, both thou and thy son son's son also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian. And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. And Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that ye would give me every man the earrings of his prey. For they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, We will willingly give them. And they spread a garment, and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides ornaments and collars and purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that were about the camels' necks. And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah. And all Israel went thither a whoring after it, which thing became a snare unto Gideon and to his house. Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. So the people asked Gideon to rule over them. And they say, we want you to rule over us, and your sons to rule over us after you. You see this a lot in history. When people view an individual as being lucky, when people view an individual as being fortunate, when people view an individual as being close to the gods, they want to reproduce with that person. They want that person to govern them, to rule over them. They want a little bit of that luck to spread and rub off on them. They want to be around that person. And so that's the status Gideon has reached, the status of a legend. So Gideon tells the people, no, I'm not going to rule over you. My sons are not going to rule over you. He says, but do this for me. He says, bring me all the earrings of your prey. And so the men agree, and they bring him more than the earrings of their prey. They bring him the earrings of their prey. They bring him a lot of ornaments and jewelry and necklaces and chains and garments. They give him everything he asked for and more. And Gideon creates an ephod. And that's why I got this slide up, because if you don't know what an ephod is, it's the thing that Moses' brother Aaron wore. It's this little chess piece or part of a chess piece, depending on the chess piece and depending on the ephod. But that's what Aaron used to wear. Aaron was the high priest that Moses anointed to be high priest. And this was the ephod. It was this little square golden plate that attached to his garment. But it's different styles of them, and they can come in various forms. So he had this ephod made of pure gold. And the Bible says it became a snare to him and his family because people started worshiping it. And that just once again goes to show you how low the Israelites had fallen to where they were literally worshiping anything but God, any and everything but God, from the gods of the Canaanites to a breastplate. They were willing to worship anything but the God of their fathers. Judges chapter 8 verses 28 through 35 read, "And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon." Like all the judges, they give the rest of the Israelites peace for the time they're alive, and usually some years after they die. And the Bible says, "And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. And Gideon had 70 sons of his begotten body, for he had many wives, that's 70 children. And his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a-whoring after Baalim, and made Baal-berith their god. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel." And so that's if you don't get anything else other than this, if you don't get anything else from the book of Judges, get this line that they said, "And as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a-whoring after Baalim." That's what you get from them, that these people are proving themselves to be unfaithful and unworthy. And also remember the name Jerubbaal, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. Am I going to tell you why this episode? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not going to tell you why this episode, but I am going to tell you why in the next episode, because I've already ran out of time with this episode. See, it takes time with these mic checks and sound checks, and you know what I mean, when the music won't loop. I have to take time out to mic check and stall, and well, maybe you don't. Anywho, back to where we was. Remember that name, Jerubbaal. It is synonymous with the name Gideon. It is the name Gideon got when he tore down the statue of Baal in the grove next to the statue on his father's property. Okay, so Judges chapter 9 verses 1 through 6 read, "And Abimelech the son of Jerubbaal went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them, and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether it is better for you either that all the sons of Jerubbaal," he says, "Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether it is better for you either that all the sons of Jerubbaal, which are 70 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and flesh." So as we see here, already, this is what the Bible was saying. Let me go back. This is what the Bible was saying when it says, "Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed to Israel." And go back a few lines, it says, I'm sorry, let me go back a slide. I'm sorry, I have to find where it says. It says, and Gideon, the son of Joash, died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a whoring after Baalim. So as soon as Gideon died, the Israelites went right back to doing what got them in trouble in the first place. And it says, if that wasn't enough to add insult to injury, they didn't treat the family or legacy or legend of the man who saved them. They didn't treat that well. On top of it, folks, I'm gonna make today a short one. I gotta stay under my hour, and I can't keep lying to y'all about the mic checks. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. I'll see you next time with episode 49, I believe. 47, 48, 49. Well, we'll finish up this story on Gideon with our third installment. See you next time. Soap Man, out. Oh, no, I gotta say my special part. I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel, and I'm out.